This is madness!
Madness. This is Sparta!
Welcome to the Perfect Movie Podcast, the podcast where we answer the question, is this a perfect movie? I'm Michael.
I'm Kalen.
Wait, I messed that up. Let me do it again. Welcome to the Perfect Movie Podcast, the podcast that likes to gather with oiled abs around the rest of our boyfriends. Boy, space friends.
Right.
To be
Spartans, we have the meats. Tonight we dine at Arby's.
Today, we are continuing our Manly March movie month. Ladies need not apply. With the 2006 film 300.
God damn, 2006?
Yes, sir. Almost 20 years old.
My God.
We could have saved it for a year and done a 20-year anniversary.
And it's aged a day, for sure.
Kalen, what do you think about the film 300, directed by the visionary director, Zack Snyder?
Of course, it should be said before we do any of this, he is a visionary. He is a god.
He can do no wrong.
Yes. Rebel Moon Part 3,
Can't
Child of Blood. It's really great. Loved it. But 300 is actually one of the only Zack Snyder films I actually like.
Oh.
And I saw this movie a long time ago. Long time ago. And I thought it was badass because I was a kid and I liked abs, apparently.
Slow-mo. Blood.
Like Spartan kicking motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty awesome.
Battles.
There are battles in this.
Female nudity.
Yes.
Male near nudity.
Yes.
There's a lot to...
I found out a lot of things about myself from watching this movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Let's just say there's a lot in this package.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Gerard Butler's cod piece.
I don't hate this movie. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in it. Kinda.
Yeah.
It looks like shit, though. It looks awful.
I think it still looks good.
You think so?
In its own unique 2000s-y way.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Because I think one context for this film is it's an adaptation of a comic book written by Frank Miller. And Frank Miller adaptations were kind of the thing. Just the year before, Sin City came out, directed by Robert Rodriguez. And it translated a Frank Miller comic book in almost the exact same way, in the sense where it's very digitally manipulated.
Yeah.
It's hyper stylized. And at least for 300, like almost everything is lifted directly from the comic book.
Yes.
And is Watchmen just after this?
Watchmen is after 300, yes.
And that's another Frank Miller comic, right?
Also directed by Zack Snyder.
Also directed by Zack Snyder, and all the people that cape for that movie, haha, pun intended, enjoy it, I think, because it is such a faithful adaptation in at least, like, the comic book is being placed on the screen.
Yes.
Panels are being recreated. Lines are being ripped straight from it.
Zack Snyder went on to make Batman vs. Superman, which takes direct inspiration from The Dark Knight Returns, but it's also super unfaithful to the comic.
Like, people are always like, well, Batman can't kill, right? So Batman can't kill is canon. And I'm like, okay, well, the first thing I want to do when you say that is I want to see what happens.
Tell me. Do you bleed? You will.
Yeah, and I think 300 was like the perfect thing for him to adapt, because the actual comic book, which I have leafed through, it ain't that deep. There's nothing deep about it, and it was never meant to be.
No.
And that's like where I think his Watchmen adaptation falters, and a lot of his stuff, comic book stuff, and movies in general in the future kind of falter. Is where it's like it's all flash, no substance.
Yeah, because Watchmen is like direct social commentary, though.
It's supposed to be, but I don't think Zack Snyder knew that when he made the movie.
No.
I don't think he figured that out. But I think 300 is a film where his skills and abilities are put to use. And this may sound like an insult, but is Zack Snyder like our greatest paint-by-numbers artist?
I would say so.
Of the like comic book adaptation, like he that's exactly what he does. Is he sees the comic book, which the 300 comic has great art and is very cool, and he just lifts the whole thing and places it into the film, and it's almost like not an adaptation.
It's all flash, no substance. That's what it is.
Because there's other comic book adaptations that I think get the comic book feel. I think Sam Raimi's Spider-Man's, like his first two Spider-Man, really nail the comic book feeling without directly like putting comic book images, panels like on the screen, lifting whole lines from actual comic books.
And then you have other things like The Walking Dead, which did its own thing and became even more successful than the comic book. So, yeah, it all depends on the director and who the visionary for the work. Zack Snyder, we've talked a lot about in the past and how much disdain we have for his films.
His recent films, especially.
His recent films, yes. Have you seen Sucker Punch before?
I have not seen Sucker Punch.
That's the one I haven't seen as well.
Yeah.
But just from his filmography, he has strengths, and I think his strengths mostly lie in his way to convey action and like gravitas and like big epic set pieces. I think that's his number one strength. 300 has a lot of that, and I think it starts to falter towards the end, but the first like hour is pretty strong, I would say.
So with that, why don't we get into our first segment, the performance test, where we're going to talk about our favorite actors, scenes, characters, and moments.
It was the performance of a lifetime!
And I think first off, we probably got to shout out Gerard Butler, who is our main character. He's Leonidas.
He does a lot of yelling in this.
Does a lot of yelling, does a lot of gruff growling.
But is he badass?
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you look at the 300 comic, like the look is impeccable.
Yeah.
They nailed the casting visually, and then the way he acts is actually perfect for this movie. And Kaylin, I just want to ask you, because I feel like you're kind of a Gerard Butler fan. You've on multiple occasions recommended me Gerard Butler films I've like never even thought of.
Like Green Day?
Like Greenland.
Greenland? Yeah. That's a good movie.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. What is the other one? Law Abiding Citizen? With
Yeah, there you
Jamie
go.
Foxx.
Yeah.
I like that movie.
Never seen it.
Yeah. He's like we have what's the guy from Gladiator? What's his
Russell
face?
Crowe?
He's like Russell. We have Russell Crowe at home to
Oh.
me. You know what I mean?
So it's Gerard Butler.
They're pretty similar, and they do a lot of the same type of roles. And
He's in the isn't he in the Olympus Has Fallen?
Olympus Has Fallen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gerard Butler is cool. He's not the type of actor you put in a role to get an Oscar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's a great action actor, and I don't know. He has some flair to him.
The more I think about it, it's kind of a well-trodden path. Like this is the Liam Neeson path as well. Like I've been starred in some prestige films and in some great action films and some great films, and also I'm just going to be in a lot of like random straight to Redbox trash.
Right.
To kind of like pad the stat sheet, fill up the bank account.
Because what was the last film Gerard Butler was in recently?
Oh, I could not tell you. I also, in my mind, confuse him with Russell Crowe often. I was going to say...
he was in Den of Thieves. Den of Thieves 2.
Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, with...
Ice Cube's son.
Mini Ice Cube.
Yeah.
Small Ice Cubes. He's in the film Plane, about a plane that crashes.
I saw that movie, and I think we briefly went over it.
Yeah,
the movie sucked.
One sec, I'm gonna put the cat away.
Dude, there's so many Olympus Has Fallen movies. There's London Has Fallen, Angel Has Fallen. Actually, that first Olympus Has Fallen film kind of rocked, not gonna lie.
We forgot about the classic Gods of Egypt.
Yes. My God.
Gamer?
Didn't he play Noah, or am I tripping?
That's Russell Crowe.
Okay, see, okay.
And I was going to say,
Yeah.
is Gerard Butler the guy in that one movie where he drives a big truck and tries to ram some white woman off the road? You know what I'm talking about? It was like a 2020 movie.
Yes. No, that's Russell Crowe.
That's Russell Crowe as well.
Yeah,
They're
it's
both
called
guys
like Road Rage or
that
something.
you can put in ancient times and make them yell, and you're like, yeah, that's a guy.
Yeah.
He's real. So is that our announcement of Gerard Butler? A guy he can be in a movie?
He's an actor. Yeah.
I do think he's very well cast for this movie. And this is a movie that I think, like we've already said a couple times, it's kind of all sizzle, no steak. So even the great actors, I'm like, well, there's no story here. It's kind of like the army's coming, we're going to go fight the army.
Yeah.
And pretty soon we're just there.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a B plot involving Lena Headey as Gorgo.
Her name is Gorgo.
That's what it says.
Oh my God.
That's why he always says, my queen, my wife, my love.
My love, Gorgo.
Nobody says her name. Maybe it's Giorgio. I don't know. I don't think anybody ever says her name. They just refer to her as queen. There's some political stuff happening in the background back at home that we cut back to most of the time. But for the most part,
But it's basically about how the Spartans aren't being men enough.
yeah.
That's all the political stuff in this movie. Or it's just like how there's some group that wants to join the Persians, and then the other group is like, no, we need to stick to our Spartan morals and kill the infidels.
Well, they're like the biblical literalists of the Spartan culture, where it's like, because at the start of the movie, there's this pretty cool scene where Gerard Butler goes to see the oracles, which are these just like completely deformed, disgusting men that live at the top of a mountain, and apparently for any big decision they have to go consult the oracles.
Yeah.
And they say, no, you cannot, form an army to wage war against the Persians. And he devised that order, and that's kind of where all the intrigue starts from.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of stuck in their ways, and they're like, well, the Oracle said no, even though they're these just like disgusting freaks that live on top of a mountain and hoard all the gold.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. There's like, that's another thing we'll get into, and it's an art, or there's a lot of like mythological kind of stuff in this, which was it in the comic? That kind of weird, like,
Yeah.
there was like centaurs and shit or whatever.
I didn't complete like the second half of the comic, but that whole trek up to the oracles is
in it.
in it.
Okay.
I just want to. I'm looking at Michael Fassbender on this list, and okay, so this is like pretty early for him because he's kind of got a nothing part.
Yeah.
I mean, he is one of like the four guys we actually listen to talk of our 300 Spartans. But he's such a recognizable face that at this time I'm like, dang, he's kind of.
Well, he was actually in Band of Brothers before this.
Yes, it has Band of Brothers listed here, and then a few movies I've never heard of, and then we get to 300, and then we start like working our way up to like he's in Inglourious Basterds and the classic film Jonah Hex.
Yeah, yeah.
Jonah Hex
Prometheus
is a terrible movie.
It is a terrible movie. There's actually a few HBO. A few actors that were in huge HBO shows. Dominic West, he was in The Wire. He played Officer McNulty. And then, of course, Lena Headey as Queen Cersei in Game of Thrones. We also have David Wenham, who is best known as Faramir from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He has a great voice. I really like his opening monologue and then his speech at the end. I thought he was a great character.
Helios. I trust that scratch hasn't made you useless.
Hardly, my lord. It's just an eye. God so fit to grace me with a spare.
I don't know, something about his voice, just because everybody's doing the like, we do Greek, but it's English.
Yeah.
And we sound like Englishmen.
Yeah.
And he's writing a little harder as far as like the accent he's doing.
Right.
Maybe it's because he's voiceover guy as well. But just something about it, I'm like, why? Who told you to talk like this? Because it doesn't really line up with everyone else. Like, are you from a different part of Sparta?
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
And it's just...
I don't see like Spartans being super intellectual,
And also,
you know,
me knowing him as Faramir, and Faramir's like a lot more just like soft spoken and like just normal. Like I can't even really remember what Faramir's voice sounds like. It certainly isn't this. It just threw me for a loop.
This role should have been given to Sean Bean.
Big Sean Bean thing.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
I was telling you that off camera. I was like, he's like Sean Bean, but less cool. Yeah, you also have Peter Mensa, who gets murdered in the first 5 minutes and gets Spartan kicked into some giant hole that's in the middle of the city. I don't really know what that hole was for. I guess it was like a well or something.
It's their killing pit. I think every city had a pit back in the day.
Just a pit where you threw bodies.
In the film Army of Darkness, the third Evil Dead film, there's also a giant pit. But that's where they keep the Deadites. But
then you get the great and iconic line of "This is Sparta," and you get Spartan kicked, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Slow motion makes a big appearance in this film. I think it was like the jumping off point for slow motion for Zack Snyder films as well. After that, you get it in everything. And then in what's that Rebel Earth?
Yeah.
Child of God.
Child of Daddies.
The whole movie is slow motion. So yeah, we'll get into that more. And it's an art. Who plays King Xerxes?
Oh, what's his name? We're scrolling.
And is he a white man?
Oh, I would hope so.
Because he is so bronze in this movie.
I'm scrolling down the cast list, and one of these roles just says Spartan Baby Inspector.
Nice.
Cool.
How did the audition go, honey?
Great. I'm Spartan Baby Inspector. That sounds like...
Oh, it's Rodrigo Santoro.
Do we know him from somewhere?
He is a Hispanic man that plays a Persian.
Oh, classic. Interesting choices with all the voices, with the voice of Xerxes. We'll get into it in
because it's just completely dubbed, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
it's super dubbed over.
Come, Leonidas. Let us reason together. It would be a regrettable waste. It would be nothing short of madness for you, brave king, and your valiant troops to perish.
Going back to Gerard Butler a little bit, I will say that I wouldn't say his performance is strong, but he's definitely like the most fun character in the movie. At least as far as like his like way that he commands his soldiers and like all the respect that's given to him and stuff. And he's got a great action set piece, that really long shot of him just like slicing through Persians and stuff. That whole scene is awesome. It's just it's really hard to even like do a performance test with this movie.
No, because it's mostly action.
Yeah. And then voiceover.
And the real turn for this movie is when this deformed Spartan, because one of the first thing we learn about Spartans, which we learn in a slow motion montage, which is apparently the only way Zack Snyder knows how to convey lore and information, is that Spartans from birth they're ground down, they fight each other, they're put through the ringer to make sure that they're the best of the best when they make it to manhood. And then there's this one character who's this deformed Spartan that's been, at some point when they first leave town, they're like, there's somebody following us, and we're like, who cares about that? And it's when the Spartan speaks with Gerard Butler.
I beg you, bold king, to permit me to redeem my father's name by serving you in combat. My father trained me to feel no fear, to make spear and shield and sword as much a part of me as my own beating heart. I will earn my father's armor, noble king, by serving you in the battle.
Fine thrust.
I will kill many Persians.
Raise your shield.
Sire.
Raise your shield as high as you can. Your father should have taught you how a phalanx works. We fight as a single impenetrable unit. That is the source of our strength. Each Spartan protects the man to his left, thigh to neck, with his shield. A single weak spot, and the phalanx shatters. From thigh to neck, Ephialtes. I am sorry, my friend, but not all of us were made to be soldiers.
But I...
If you want to help in a Spartan victory, clear the battlefield of the dead, tend the wounded, bring them water. But as for the fight itself, I cannot use you.
You... Mother! Father! You were wrong! You are wrong! Leonidas! You are wrong!
He's like your classic like military guy.
Yeah,
He
basically-
puts his soldiers first, and it's like if you are going to like cost lives, you're gonna if you're a liability, you have no part in this.
Yeah, he basically says, well, you can't lift your shield up high enough above your shoulder to be part of our phalanx, and because of that, we can't have a weak link in our army.
Right.
And that is the reason that our goblin guy goes over to King Xerxes and tells him about this secret path, which at the beginning of the movie, they're like, we'll just pray to God nobody finds out about that, which seems like a little bit of a,
And also, our hunchback just really wants some poon.
That's true.
So,
And that's what Xerxes offers.
stop simping. Anyways,
Shall we move on to It's an Art? We talk about the, style and all the details of this film.
What's this?
It's an art project.
Okay, I like it. Picasso. Yeah, that way.
yeah. So this movie can be very much summed up by style. There's a lot going on. A lot of it is not very good, but I think the stuff that is good is directly taken from the comic, which we mentioned earlier. There are plenty of shots that are like direct shot for shot from the comic panels. I'm thinking one in particular when they back the Persian army up to a cliff, and then they all start falling off. That is like such a cool shot, by the way. But it's like that's a direct panel from the comic book as well. And then one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when they were looking over the cliff and they see the Spartan army, or not the Spartan army, the Persian army coming in their ships, and then the storm hits, and then the waves are crashing, destroying all the boats, and they're all just watching as the rain is hitting them and stuff, and then Leonidas is like holding up his shield and the rain is going over it. It looks awesome. That was a great looking scene, but again, directly from the comic book. But
Same. And the same goes for the writing, because some of the best lines are directly from the comic book.
Yeah.
When the Persian messenger comes and says, like,
this is heresy. This is madness.
not the second one, the one that goes to them on the mountains.
Oh.
And he gets mistreated there. He gets his arm chopped off, and he's, hordes and hordes of us. We will turn the sky black with our arrows.
Our arrows will blot out the sun.
And
Whatever.
one of the guys says, then we'll fight in the
Fight in the
shade.
shade. That was
Like,
Michael
that is,
Fassbender.
that's a great line, and it's ripped directly from the comics. Most of the great lines are ripped directly from the comic.
Oh, Zack.
Our paint-by-number superstar.
I thought when you go to Xerxes' palace and it's like this weird sex dungeon, and there's like a goat man from Narnia
Playing
or
a
something.
flute?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like ogres and like weird shit. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, but you don't really, I don't know, because I guess it's supposed to be like Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all these weird monsters and creatures and stuff, but it's not really like, the world is like too realized, I feel like, outside of that palace, that this kind of stuff just doesn't really fit. And so I feel like if you started from the jump, like, yeah, there's fucking Cyclops and shit in this world, that it would make it more believable.
The only thing is there's like a giant that they fight during the very first fight. There's some like 8-foot tall man, but you can kind of just be like, that's a big guy.
Just a big dude.
It's one of those things because along with this being a a comic book adaptation that's very digital that became a thing, just like Sin City was just before this. This is also in this era of like swords and sandals and fantasy films that come around these like early to mid 2000s. Clash of the Titans, Kingdom of Heaven, Gladiator before it. I think you can even kind of shove Lord of the Rings in there, because like this film is, I feel like, is saying like, well, whatever, they saw Lord of the Rings, so they can ride elephants and there can be goblins and flute playing goats, and like nobody's gonna ask any questions. The audience is primed for this type of thing,
right?
And I actually do like that they don't explain it. I like that there's just a goat playing a flute and nobody's like, you know, he doesn't stop and go like, what the hell is that? You know? Like we never step out of our mood and tone. This whole movie is kind of a tone poem of a certain edgy badassery, and it never winks and nods at you, and it never really stops to explain itself for the most part.
I think what was so interesting for this film at the time was how like shockingly violent it was, and how gory it was. Because the Swords and Sandals movies before this they're obviously violent, but they weren't as like gratuitous, I would say.
I mean, this is a film whose poster features like bloody splatter on it. Like the 300 had splatter on the poster. Yeah, and this is again a theme that like follows Zack Snyder. He's the edgy one. He's the guy that's going to make that R-rated director's cut of Batman v Superman where they say the fuck word, you know? Like this is the second step on that journey.
And Batman just murders everyone.
Yeah. Everyone's dressed like there's a Caligula themed party during Pride Month.
Nice.
Just all the gladiators, their little tiny cod pieces in their capes and their big abs.
Yeah.
It's and then when we meet the Athenians, they're wearing like bondage gear. They got a lot of strappy outfits.
Yeah.
And they play like total betas. They're like, oh geez, we can't fight all this many guys, Leonidas.
And then Xerxes is literally like a BDSM god.
Yeah.
Like he's got nipple piercings and shit.
My big theory is the reason they dubbed him is the actors just got this real lispy, like Leonidas, you could be king of everything. You know? Like that's what his face is doing. And with his like eyeliner and everything. Leonidas, you could be my right hand man.
Leonidas, you could be a god.
But like on set, he's like, you could be my best boy. You know?
And Xerxes is like 9 feet tall for whatever reason. Yeah. That whole character is kind of bizarre, but
I think it fits with the mood of the film.
But they explain I don't know if you've ever seen 300 Rise of an Empire, which is not a Zack Snyder film, but it is a direct sequel to this. They explain why Xerxes is so tall. He was a man before a normal guy, a normal Hispanic man, and then he like became a god somehow. And so for whatever reason, they felt the need to explain why this man is like 8 feet tall. So.
Well, they do always refer to him as the god emperor Xerxes.
Yes.
You think it's just, brainwashed propaganda, but I guess we're taking that literally.
That would have been more interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
Da-da-da. Like, I mean, Genghis Khan did the same thing.
Yeah.
Nobody called him a god. Maybe they did. I don't know.
You know who they call a god now? It rhymes with rump.
Thank you.
God Emperor Trump. He's just got nipple piercings and has a really deep fucking voice.
Yeah. Have you ever seen any of those comics where they're like absolutely throating Trump and they draw him all buff?
Yeah.
It's hilarious. One thing that I think was lifted directly from Gladiator is the amount of time we spend in gold fields of grain. Like that is a big theme of Gladiator. Yeah. And especially at the end, like the ending of this movie is also the ending of Gladiator.
When he walks off with his family
through the golden waves.
Literally.
I mean, everything in this film has this brown, yellow, sepia tone, gold thing.
Yeah.
Gladiator, the film, isn't that way, but this carries that throughout.
We should see how much the budget was for this. Well, it grossed over $456 million in the box office. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, for an R-rated release.
I mean, I was in 5th grade when this came out, and I remember kids at school talking about this movie. I could never see it, though.
Oh, no, for sure.
Why can I not find the...
It says this had a budget of around $60 million.
$65 million, yeah.
So that's a pretty great return.
And that's what catapulted Zack Snyder's career, basically, this film. And now he's making everything.
And it makes sense that this could be lower budget, because once you get all the actors in there, you can film this all in a digital backlot somewhere.
I'm sure it didn't take long to make this.
It says it was shot over the course of 60 days. They shot it in chronological order, which is kind of interesting. Most films do not do that. No. But I suppose if just about everything's digital and 90% of it occurs on one general area, this Thermopylae pass set, it seems like it should be something.
You know, stylistically, usually ancient Greece is super vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is complete opposite of that. It's super grungy and kind of depressing looking. Everything is gray. It looks like a wasteland. Besides Sparta, basically. Even Sparta is just gray with some gold here and there, you know. But I just found it interesting because usually ancient Greece is it's the blue, clear blue waters and the big mountains, and it's looking beautiful with palm trees and shit. And
but no. This is a movie for men.
This movie is men, and men like dirt. Let's move on to, hey, what are you trying to say? Because I think we can get into some interesting stuff.
Let's do, hey, what are you trying to say? Where we talk about the themes and ideas.
Take it away whenever you're ready.
All right, let me just get that last measurement on your
Thank you. I need this for the wedding.
Okay, well,
I need it really quickly.
It could take about a week to do.
It could take a week?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are you trying to say? He's trying to say that I'm so big, my bum is so big, you need to order to various countries far away to get enough material to make a pair of pants so I can fit my incredibly obese buttocks into a pair of your specially made little suits.
No, I mean I'm the only one working here this week.
Oh, okay.
First of all, the graphic novel for 300 is based on a real event. King Leonidas was a real person. It's based on the Battle of Thermopylae, where a group of 300 Spartans took on the Persian army, which is pretty awesome that this was a real event in history. Obviously, it has been the story is a lot more exaggerated, but I just found that to be pretty cool, the whole story behind that. And there's plenty of documentaries you can find on YouTube about it if you ever want to check that out. I would say this movie, there's a lot of homoeroticism in this movie. And it's interesting because Zack Snyder's entire filmography is filled with that kind of imagery.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's trying to say something in regards to that. I don't think he even realizes what he's doing.
No, I think he's an ex-commercial director, which is true, who just thinks he's shooting a Wheaties commercial every movie. I think he just likes bodies because it's the girls too.
I was gonna say he has a fascination with human anatomy.
Yeah, he just wants to watch muscles ripple in slow motion, and it always comes back to that, no matter what film it is.
And that's fine if there was any type of true artistic flair to it.
Yeah,
and then it's you cast Henry Cavill as Superman, and he looks like a Greek fucking god, And then the whole idea of who Superman is in that universe, he's Jesus basically.
Yeah, Ben Affleck became a human tank to be in be in the film. Ben Affleck wasn't that big most of the time.
It's just really interesting. And then in this film, it's all obviously not all those actors have six packs.
Yeah.
So it's you're digitally adding abs and stuff, which is strange because actual Spartan armor, they wore breastplates and stuff. They weren't just butt ass naked on the field.
Yeah.
But maybe that was in the graphic
That's
novel
in the
as well?
graphic novel, and the graphic novel is, I guess, it's not really based on history. It's based on some like 1940s or 50s film that Frank Miller watched as a kid that left a big impression, and that is also called 300 something. There's a colon and a subtitle, but it's the same idea and story. And I think that's also where the costuming comes from.
Interesting.
But at least the costume, if not, at least the costuming, like that idea comes from the comic book. Which, once again, Zack Snyder, he's our literalist. Like, he will just take what is on the comic book and he will attempt to put it on screen.
Regardless if it works or not.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to, like, superhero costumes as well. Because obviously, if you read comics, like, they're wearing skin-tight leotards. And if you translate that into film, it looks absolutely ridiculous into live action. And so, obviously, with the more stylized graphic novel, you could have a bunch of dudes being shirtless, holding spears and wearing helmets and shit, and be convinced by that. But when you throw in this movie, it's like, it looks pretty fucking ridiculous. When I was a kid, I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But like now, I'm like, yeah, maybe we should have did something a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm picturing the Zack Snyder being like, okay, good, cut. And then just a bunch of shirtless dudes in cod pieces having to like mill around awkwardly and like eat their little snack wraps off the
Yeah. Well, if you like look at some characters, I know there's like an older Spartan guy that had a son that dies in the film. He's like a little pudgy, and if you look at him, like he's just got kind of flabby, and without like the digitaling like effects in every scene, like it looks pretty silly. And so I don't know. I can't take it seriously.
You know, you could just have this movie with some like pretty athletic shirtless dudes and maybe a couple dudes like the older guy, he's not as ripped because he's in his 50s.
Right.
You know, the guys don't usually carry six packs into that age.
And I also think too, like, I think he would explain it like, oh, well, the Spartans, you know, they're just this warrior clan, and it's like they didn't need armor. Yeah. You know, because they're so badass and they're a unit. You know what I mean? Like,
so elite.
Yeah, it's like that's fine. If this, you know, this is such a hyper stylistic, like hyper reality that I don't think it really matters. But I just found it to look completely ridiculous now that after this last rewatch. But
yeah, and geography of this location, we're on like a seaside cliff, which I bet is windy as hell. There's gonna be a lot of hard nips out there. You know, it's cold. Well, fuck, I'm cold.
Yeah.
They're standing in the rain in that one scene. In the blowing rain. The ships are like crashing on the rocks, and they're like, we're still shirtless in our capes. That's all we need.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think this film just speaks more about Zack Snyder than anything else.
But it's the Frank Miller style. That's what Frank Miller's comic does. But it fits Zack Snyder. This is what drew him to this material, I think.
I think the offset of like the bright red cape is pretty cool and stuff, and then Leonidas's helmet is fucking awesome. But yeah, it's pretty funny. But maybe also too, it's like George Miller was taking inspiration from like actual like paintings of like, you know, like the paintings on the like jars and shit that they had of ancient Greece and stuff, and it was dudes who were shirtless, and you know how you have the giant statues with dudes who are shirtless and stuff. That's all fine, but I don't know. That's like the number one thing people remember about this movie is just dudes running around with fucking rippling abs.
Yeah.
We've talked enough.
And I don't think there's much else to be said. It is not a film that thinks deeply.
Not at all.
I didn't read far enough to figure out if I need to blame Frank Miller or Zack Snyder for having the only female character being R-worded. It sounds sounds like it's probably a Frank Miller problem, because like if you've watched Sin City, it's also a film where like every woman is either like a sex worker or is like being sexually abused. Yeah, that's the same thing in there, and I just find that, I don't know, the more modern it gets, I'm just like, it's just gross. Like, I don't understand why this had to be this way. Like, and it's not necessary. And Zack Snyder went back to this in Rebel Moon, which is his own original IP. His shorthand for making this bad guy really hateable was to have him attempt to rape someone in a barn.
Yeah,
and it's like, there's other ways, and if you're going to do that, there needs to be like a lot of reason. And I think this film at least gives the dignity of she gets her revenge like right away and says that disgusting line he says right back to her.
Right. This won't
be over quickly
or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. The way I saw it was like Zack Snyder being like, "Yeah, Gerard Butler's not there, and she can't defend herself."
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me. But it's like you build up this character as being like super independent, and she's like speaking out of turn, and that it was said that that's what Spartan women are like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. From moment one,
yeah,
she's speaking out of turn.
So it's even out of character for her to even allow that to happen to herself. Uh-huh. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting. And then they had like their diaper wearing son running around. That kid was goofy.
Just total plot guy. Like this kid has no character. It's just someone for Gerard Butler to kiss on the head before he leaves.
I did really like the opening scene with like the showing the kids being trained and stuff. That was pretty cool.
I just note that when Gerard Butler dies, he says nothing about his son.
Because that kid was a pussy. He's about to throw that kid off a cliff.
All right. Should we move on to our next segment?
Yes. Let's let the hate flow through.
Let's let the hate flow through you. This is where we're going to air out our annoyances and our complaints.
Good. Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
I hate this movie.
Do you actually?
No, I don't. This movie is, like I said, it's the best Zack Snyder film, but it's not. That's not saying much.
It's a low bar. I haven't rewatched his Dawn of the Dead, which I think is his film. It's his early one, and it might be the one that has less of his more annoying tendencies.
That one is more like a movie.
Yeah, it's just a regular movie.
And then you have we totally forgot Army of the Dead.
Yeah,
forgot all about that piece of shit. Yeah, he doesn't have now he's at the point in his career where he's like doing a lot of like borderline experimental cinematography, and thank God you don't have that in this. I mean, there is the slow-mo, which is bad, but
now he's writing his own films and being like director of photography, and now all his films have the exact same ugly look. Like his last 3 all have the same hideous look. This film at least is cool. Like even Batman v Superman, like there's many images that are cool.
Yeah.
The line is fucking stupid, but the frame when Batman goes, "Can you bleed?"
Yeah.
Like the frame is cool.
Yeah.
The setting is cool. Everything inside of it is dumb, but like aesthetically there's something there.
Yeah.
Same for even I actually kind of enjoy the Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's too damn long.
Yeah. There's a lot of great stuff in that.
There's a lot of really good stuff, and he actually successfully achieves this epic scope that I didn't really, after seeing the theatrical release of the Justice League, I didn't really know was even in there.
Yeah,
possibly
it's
could be in there.
It's night and day. I mean, the sequence with Flash going back in time, that scene is awesome.
Yes. I love our intro to Flash with the car that crashes and he saves that girl.
Also awesome, but it's got Ezra Miller in it, so fuck all of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like the guy. He's not completely incompetent, but I think his own pretentious crap gets in the way. And so then it's you throw in that 10-minute scene where there's this alternative world with Batman, and it's the apocalypse, and you have Jokers saying a bunch of dumb shit, and you have that dumb fucking lens, fucking fisheye lens thing that they do or whatever. That it's so awful, dude. I don't know.
And yeah, now he's moved on to his era of original films. I'm making my own original films, quote, in big air quotes, Rebel Moon, which is a failed Star Wars pitch, and Army of the Dead, which is just his own version of a Day of the Dead remake. George Romero went on to do Land of the Dead and several other sequels to Day of the Dead. And he's trying to do his own thing, but it's just a shitty Dave Bautista vehicle that sucks.
Yeah.
And they had to recast, I think TJ Miller was in it, and that's the coolest effect in the whole film is the have you seen Army of the Dead?
Have.
The helicopter pilot, she filmed everything in post and got digitally inserted because they removed the character for being the actor TJ Miller for being problematic.
Yeah.
And she's the best part of the movie, and also it's pretty seamless. I'm God damn, you actually put a whole character in your film digitally and it doesn't.
Well, that goes back to the Snyder cut. It's how the fuck did you guys make a fucking 4-hour movie out of this?
Yeah.
Is beyond me.
Yeah.
you know, let alone in that time frame. I don't think it was too long after the release of Justice League that dropped. You know what I mean?
I just see him as this Zack Snyder, as this overgrown 13-year-old or like 12-year-old.
Just smashing action
figures together. And sometimes it's cool, and sometimes it feels like a 12-year-old boy smashing action figures.
Yeah. And that would be fine.
Like, I like the imagination.
If it's like, if you didn't like say that we're not smart enough to understand this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what they try to do with BVS. Where it's like, oh, this movie is a lot smarter than most people think, and no, it's not.
No, it's really stupid. Martha, why did you say that name?
Do you bleed?
Do you bleed? Just visual, the senator turning the little bottle that says peach lemonade.
Yeah. That's a great scene, though.
Yeah.
That was a good scene. And I liked Jesse Eisenberg as but not Dr. Doom.
As Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, as Luthor. But it's like, that's a totally different type of character.
No.
Like, he's playing the Riddler, basically.
Yeah.
But it's like, I thought he was fine in that. People hated it. But I liked when he was like, everybody thinks that devils come from below, but no, they come from the sky.
To the Snyder fanboys, you have not attached yourself to a misunderstood genius. You have attached yourself to an aesthetic child in you finds cool. And that's fine, but don't tell me that he's some secret genius.
Should we tell everybody about our theory about Zack Snyder fans?
Go ahead.
That we had? We were like, I guess, browsing Facebook one day, and we were kind of sharing some stuff back and forth about these Zack Snyder fan pages. And we were looking down at the comment sections of these pages.
Oh, this theory.
And we were thinking that it's quite possible that a big majority of these, people call them Snyder cultists or whatever, but these people are so adamant about these superhero movies that there is a touch of the tism in there.
Yeah.
And that's
no judgment.
No judgment whatsoever.
We think both work closely with people with a touch of the tism and love them deeply.
That would make a lot of sense in regards to like the just the overall obsessiveness,
the black and white view on this thing.
Yes. Also just like there's a lot of different signs to this, and you can look for yourself, dude. You know what I mean? We're not just pulling this out of nowhere. But we just find it interesting because that explains a lot. And it also explains a lot about Zack Snyder as well. And it's, yeah.
And I think you can tie that even larger to like a lot of like nerd culture things. Star Wars, definitely a big one. You could say the same thing about it. Like there's, at least the people that are the most adamant and insistent and maybe toxic online.
Yes.
There could be a bit of that.
Yes. Because what I think it is, it's like, it's going back to incel culture and just like overall grifters who just complain and hate everything online. In regards to anything that isn't about straight white males, basically. There's a lot of that. And then it's just interesting, the
new Snow White movie, it's woke!
Because the Snow White isn't hot enough.
Not white enough.
That too, but people were saying they were complaining because Gal Gadot was not Snow White because she's hotter than Snow White.
What?
Yeah, because she plays the queen.
Yeah, but Gal Gadot's like not a Snow White type. Snow White's got to be kind of little. Gal Gadot's like 6'3".
Yeah, she's fucking Wonder Woman. So I mean,
right.
I don't know. It just explains so much.
Gal Gadot cannot act her way out of a paper bag. Like, let's get our supercut of Gal Gadot delivering great lines.
My God, in the Snyder cut, she has like monologues.
Yeah,
and it's terrible. She has that whole monologue about Darkseid or whatever.
Stop! Give me the stone.
Max Lord, you're putting yourself and everyone else in grave danger. I need you to give me the stone. What happened to it?
This comic book realm, man, is such. It's just very like toxic.
It's a yucky space.
Yeah, it's just sucks to be a fan of anything. Like we used to love Star Wars, but the soul has just been sucked completely dry. And it's the same with the superhero stuff too. And I think that like directors who enable this kind of behavior, Zack Snyder, I'm talking to you because I have not seen you once denounce any of this shit.
Yeah.
you allow people like this to enter this space and to just like, I don't know, just have the most disgusting behavior possible. It just says a lot about you as a person.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Recently, yeah, I think you can say that about Zack Snyder. One thing I will give him, and this is some Zack Snyder lore, I suppose we're going to get into. He got really screwed during the whole Justice League thing.
Also, his daughter had committed suicide.
Yeah, so his daughter committed suicide, and he left the production. And that's when they handed it over to the Avengers director, whose name I'm blanking on right now. And it ended up in the atrocity that got released theatrically. That was just an absolutely terrible movie. There was a mishmash of two styles that didn't fit together. And it was just after the Snyder cut comes out, it's like so clear that like the studio didn't want to make this movie.
Yeah,
you know. And I've heard other stories of like Sam Raimi's talked about stuff like this, where he's like, I'm going to shoot this movie a specific way so the studio cannot recut it and change it behind my back. Because if the footage isn't there, they're either going to have to pay more money to put that stuff in there or. So at least for like his campaigning, which I think is really when this like Snyder fandom kind of like coalesced, was like around the release the Snyder cut thing.
Yes.
And yeah, some of that was pretty toxic, but I can't blame Zack Snyder for like hitching a ride to that like moving train and being like, yeah, let's release the fucking movie that I tried to make. Yeah. And you took advantage of this tragedy in my life to like rearrange it and turn it into whatever movie you thought was best, which everyone hated.
For sure. And we're all about directors being able to have their full vision.
And now he does. And he made Rebel Moon Part 2. So
well, that's what I'm saying, where it's like, and now also with that culture as well, now it's like all these fans think that if they cry hard enough, they're going to get what they want now.
Yeah.
So they do it with everything. Now they're boycotting fucking Snow White. Why?
Yeah.
What grown man is watching that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it just opened up the floodgates to all this toxicity. And it's such a shame because you're just losing like the true art of filmmaking.
Yeah.
By doing this kind of stuff. And it's just, it sucks.
I think that's true, but we have also pointed out that it's kind of an ongoing thing since we talked about like Phantom Menace.
Right. I guess now it's just more out in the open due to social media.
And that there's more IPs that are like sucking up more of the like space.
Yes.
Intellectual property. We always say IP, and I don't know if everyone knows what an IP is. Maybe I should start saying like intellectual property.
Yeah.
More brands that are being managed. So let's ask our final question for the film 300. Is this a perfect movie?
You lost a baby brother. Perfect in every way.
I had a baby brother. I had a little baby brother. And it was perfect. Perfect in every way.
I think this goes in our subcategory.
Of you had to be there. Yeah.
In 2007, if you asked me this, I would have been like, fuck yeah. This is amazing.
It was definitely a phenomenon. I think that's something that we kind of glossed over. We didn't really talk about the impact that this film had. This movie was pretty iconic. A lot of the lines are very quotable. The "This is Sparta" line is like been memed constantly. You have spoofs of this film that came out. I think it was like
Meet the Spartans
and stuff. And then it's just cemented itself into pop culture. It's definitely something that should be said about this movie and should be appreciated. That whether you like Zack Snyder or not, this movie is kind of here to stay.
Yeah,
it's definitely a part of a generation. And it was definitely awesome when I was a kid.
And I still think it's a worthwhile watch. Like I think it's fun. It holds up as still pretty damn cool.
I revisit this movie time and time again because I think it holds up from that aspect where it's just a fun watch, something to throw on in the background.
Yeah, it's definitely a standout action film of that 2000 to 2010 era.
And if you're with the boys, and you're just like, shit, let's throw on a movie.
You're like, hey, let's take our tops off.
300.
Let's pretend we're in the movie, boys.
I'll be Xerxes and you be Leonidas.
Oh, whip that boy.
Okay.
Relax. Well, he tried, but then he cut off his hand. He said, none of that gay shit.
And he said, my arm! That would be my reaction to get my arm cut off. My arm! I needed that. Our arrows will blot out the sun. The way he said that, he sounded like a pirate.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. He was in Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest.
Is that why Faramir talks like that? Did his accent start after his eye came out?
Oh, I think so, yeah. He was like, "Arg, mateys, we are the 300.
We can still be fighting here, mateys."
Oh, I got me scurvy after the arrow got my knee.
You know, one point I meant to make earlier, I'm just going to make now about Faramir, is I think this movie justifies being so over the top and how it's so ahistorical because it's all set up as the story, like the legend being told by, we keep calling him Faramir, I don't remember his real character, coming home and speaking to the Senate to get his army assembled.
Right.
And then we get our final scene where the armies, it's a face-off, and has his whole speech.
But I think he was talking to his soldiers because before they were around a campfire, it was all the soldiers he was telling this story.
I think it cuts both. Like it's the
from the Senate to the
he tells the story. I think we're at the beginning of the movie. It's the soldiers in the camp before they are about to like have their final battle with Xerxes.
Right. Yeah.
And he returns to the Senate and he tells the story there. And then it cuts to him standing in the front of the battle line doing his like Braveheart speech.
You know what's funny about like Braveheart speeches is like he's like nobody can hear that. Yeah. There's like 10,000 soldiers. Who's hearing that?
In Braveheart, it's like kind of believable because it's like one line of horses.
Yeah.
Going down like a half mile. Yeah. But in this, there's literally like legions. Like the camera rises over a hill and there's like millions of men. And he goes like, "For Sparta," and everyone goes like, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
but I'm like, how the fuck is this guy a half mile away hearing?
Just
this
imagine somebody in the back going, "What?
What did he say? Give him the megaphone.
Is it time to go now?"
I like your straps, Spartan. Wow, it's the Athenians who Jerry Butler calls boy lovers.
Boy lovers. Those boy lover Athenians.
Those Spartans are so cute. And they're...
What I do love is like how the Spartans just know they're like the shit.
Yeah.
So whenever they see somebody like another Greek person, they're just like, "Yeah, you guys are not on my level, bro. Like, fuck off."
Denzel got in Gladiator 2. I feel like we really missed an opportunity for like young Denzel to be able to like lead a Roman legion.
We as Romans and shit.
I just think he'd be the best at giving that front speech.
He would.
He would do the like remember the times like who's your daddy?
He'd be like, "All right, okay."
All right, so 300. It's not on the list. Next episode, we will be doing T2, Terminator Judgment Day.
Another movie for
men.
The boys.
So we'll cover that next time. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you then.
Why did you say that name? Martha, why did you say that name?
Stop! Please, stop!
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name. It's his mother's name.